Hi, my name is Louise Larson. I run August Consulting, helping families on the road to college with their admissions process. And this is my webinar for December 2025. Um, I am going to start with my news and notes of things that are going on of late in the past month, and then I'm going to do a deeper talk about getting decisions, how to manage getting decisions, things to know. Um, we are, as I said, it's early December, and the a lot of schools have released decisions already, and more are going to come in the next couple of weeks. So if you have a senior, it is go time. So, um, so anyway, news and notes. So sometime this fall, I had a webinar talking about why not to use AI with your writing. And I put it on YouTube, and a couple people, I don't know who, were commenting saying, AI can't tell, like you if you put up AI essays and non-AI essays, you couldn't tell the difference, and that might be true. I don't know exactly, but I I listened to there's a very good podcast called The Admissions Beat by Lee Coffin, and Lee Coffin is the director, dean of enrollment at Dartmouth College, and he has been in this game a long, long time. He came up through the NESCAC schools. He ultimately became head of admissions at Tufts, and then about, I don't know, a decade or so ago, he moved to Dartmouth. And it doesn't matter if you have a kid that wants to go to an SEC school, you could listen to Lee Coffin's his podcast is very, very good, very college admissions focused. So, in terms of writing, this is what he said, and I thought it was so meaningful, it was worth opening up this month. And he's talking about writing and using AI or not using AI. He says, "The poetry of earnestness is organic and sincere. You can feel it when you read hundreds and hundreds of applications each cycle. As you move from one to the next, you develop a way of understanding something that is true versus something that's been spun. An earnest voice does resonate." So I thought I would, if it's only December, the kids could still be writing, but the earnestness, you can't fake authentic. So I'm posting this a little bit late because I went and saw Jeff Salingo present his book Dream Schools, and it was a conversation with David Muir, who is the news anchor for ABC, and they were roommates at Ithaca College. And the premise of Jeff's book is that you don't have to go to the most selective school to really have a powerful experience. And they both went to Ithaca College, and they said that, here we are. We've had very fruitful, meaningful careers. You don't have to go to an ultra selective school to be successful. So that was a lot of fun to go hear him and see what they had to say. I wanted to loop back and talk a little bit about there's still a lot of news around the whole Tulane early decision and Tulane pausing certain high schools' ability to have their class of 2026 apply early decision based on class of 25 students that did not uphold their early decision agreement and backed out of them. One of these schools is Colorado Academy. The other three schools have not been named. And there's still a lot of talk about this. And 63% of the class at Tulane is coming in early decision, and that does not take into account that they brought in another 20% of the class off the wait list. So when you come off the wait list, it they're going to call you and say, "Do you want to come?" And if you say yes, then they're going to make the offer. So it's kind of a guarantee for them. So telling kids that they can't apply early decision from a class that had nothing to do with the transgression, a lot of people have taken exception to it and really criticized Tulane. Um, Really, what should have happened, and what it says in the Common App, and back in the day, is if you did not, if you misstepped in this process, all your admissions would be rescinded from Tulane, from the school that you were kind of skipping Tulane to go to. So really, if people were kind of towing the line and following the rules and regulations of this, the admissions decisions, the acceptances for this for these students that rescinded on early decision um, should have been rescinded. In this climate, especially if this was a full pay kid coming in, the school that actually got the student might not be in a position to start rescinding applications. So the final PS to this is that there's a guy named John Bokenstedt, and he is the like the head of admissions at Oregon State. He's been in this business for 40 plus years. He's a very sage voice, and he chimed in on the whole Tulane thing and said, "Who cares? We have so many big problems in higher education. This is not one of them." So that was another interesting perspective. In terms of shifts and changes in things going on in college admissions, um, there's always talk about colleges that are struggling and potentially closing. One closure is Sterling College in Vermont is closing due to lack of enrollment. Um, Rider College in New Jersey has been placed on financial probation with regulators. And Roger Williams in Rhode Island is furloughing their entire campus for a week in June. So they'll probably get through graduation, spring semester, reunions, and then close the campus for a week, and everybody takes a week off unpaid. Um, the other thing is University of Chicago, Wall Street Journal on October 30th announced that they had a $288 million shortfall in their $3.3 million budget. Now, that's a pretty wealthy school to have a shortfall. And by all the news that I've read, it seems like they just kind of a little bit careless mismanagement. I would imagine that Chicago will be able to bounce back from this. But when a school like Roger Williams is furloughing, you know, I bet there's more challenge there than we might see right out of the gate. The other little financial piece that I thought was so interesting, not so interesting, but something to really be aware of. I have a lot of friends that just seem to be dealing with ailing, declining older relatives. And I was listening to a financial aid person say that it is much better if you are in that position where you're caring for an elderly relative. It is much, much better to have power of attorney than to suddenly be on their accounts. Many people might say, well, my mother put me on the title of her house so that, I can make decisions or it's a smoother transaction, were she to um, become deceased. But if you are applying for financial aid and you own half of a house, that goes into the financial aid formula as yours. Same type of thing, you might have a bill paying account with meaningful funds in it that you are named on the account. That's your money. So it is better to have power of attorney if that type of asset structure is going to change your formula and perhaps knock you out of potential financial aid. Um, this has been in the news. Newly enrolled international students dropped 17% this autumn due to restrictions on student visas and other policies. This is why I think we saw so much waitlist movement late in the summer. Duke opened up their closed waitlist in August, took 50 kids. Those 50 kids, if they came, they left spots in other schools. So there was so much waitlist movement, and I think that this drop in international students is part of that. There's new data out from the Common Apps through November 1st. What they're seeing, there's an increase of 5%. There was individual applications last year, individual applicants, there was 913,000 and change. This year, as of November 1st, there's 962,000 and change. So it's almost 50,000 more applicants, individual applicants. And the application volume has gone up about 10% from around 4.3 million to around 4.7 million just through November 1st. So definitely, some upticks, and that will probably continue through the cycle. I heard an expression, a piece of vocabulary of college admissions that I had never heard before, and I'm going to tell you what it is. It is a geo market. And I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about um, geo markets. And this is an area of a country, city, or state, and they get narrower and narrower and narrower. That gives a college a sense of your background. Is it an urban area? Is it a wealthy area? Is it a rural area? Is it highly resourced? Is it low resourced? There are very specific data associated with individual geo markets. And it's how colleges divvy up the country, much like when you see elections divided by zones or regions or counties, how they break them down into such small little slices. And the geo market is how they decide to read applications or to visit or recruit or what high schools to go see. So your geo market can matter. Um, Now, I know I was talking about colleges with challenges, but interestingly, University of Rhode Island has completely exceeded their enrollment goals this fall, and um, I'm trying to see, do I have a specific number? I don't have a specific number. Uh, they enrolled 3,431 students, which exceeded original and revised goals. So, I don't know exactly what their goals were, but they exceeded their goals, and they are working on building three new residence halls with 2,000 beds. So, what that tells me for the immediate future is that University of Rhode Island might be trying to bring in a little bit of a smaller class next year while they get these three residence halls built over the next year or so. So, there's been a lot of talk in the news about transparency around cost for colleges. Um, you know, more shall be revealed. Um, Vanderbilt bought the General Theological Seminary in Chelsea, in this Chelsea neighborhood of New York City. They're going to put in two academic programs for about 100 juniors and seniors to come study business, and there's also going to be graduate work available there for Masters of Science in Business and Technology. You see more and more schools building satellite campuses. I think Vanderbilt has one in Miami. Um, you see Northeastern doing that. They've got a lot of campuses. If you go to Washington, D.C., you see little satellite campuses of all sorts of colleges. Um, and so interesting that when you can go to Vanderbilt and study in New York City as a Vanderbilt student, it's all articulated and coordinated with your college. You're not going somewhere else and doing it at a different school. So I've seen a couple little things with my seniors this year, and they're hard and they're frustrating. I had a kid applied to Arizona State and you know sent everything in, and the Arizona State portal kept saying you haven't paid the admissions fee, $70 or something. And the kid had like the credit card charged, and they were trying to contact ASU, and it just kept saying, sorry, it's not paid. Sorry, it's not paid. And after about, and it said the whole file was complete. So everything had arrived, the transcript, the scores, everything had arrived, but it wasn't paid. And I didn't know what to tell them exactly. I said, let's, contact them. And after about a week of this, it just magically appeared paid. So I don't know if that's a glitch with ASU. I don't know what it is, but it's unnerving to see something that you've done that you can have a digital file saying this has been completed, this payment has been made, I've been charged, but you're saying I haven't, and my file's not complete. It's very challenging. Is this self-resolved? The other piece of the puzzle that, again, I found this year very challenging in the nuts and bolts of actual submission and getting everything in. The idea of sending scores versus self-reporting scores. Sending scores means it comes from the College Board of the ACT, and that's great. You know you've sent them and you can kind of see it. You have a digital record of it. Self-reporting scores means a lot of different things to a lot of different schools. It's just, I'm like, so self-reporting could just be like, hey, I got a 1270, I have a 670 and a 600. Those are my scores. Some want you to upload a screenshot. Some want you to send them, like, there's all different ways that they want it done. Some want it done on the Common App. Some want it uploaded to the portal later. So, and I had this one kid who like said, it's 15 bucks to send these scores, and 10 of my 11 schools allow self-reporting, and I'd like to self-report. So, but as we went through these 10 schools, it really was 10 different, not 10 different ways to do it, but several different ways that needed to be done. And the kid was like, oh, I'll save the 150 bucks. And the parent was even like, maybe we'll just pay the money and get them sent. And I was like, the kid got it sorted out, but it was complex. Um, the other thing that I had a parent come back from some college visits, and this is so typical. There was one school they were so excited to see, and they really thought it was going to be just so great. And the one that they thought was going to be so great was a little not what they expected, and they stopped by somewhere else that they really weren't that up on or done that much research on, but it was nearby, and they ended up loving the one that was more of an afterthought. And the one they went to see was not even on the list anymore. So you just never know. Um, so, as I said, it is early December. Now, this is where the decisions really start to come out. And they tend to be at more selective schools. So it's not just, some regional state school giving out answers. It tends to be like more high profile schools. And we've already seen before Thanksgiving this year, we had decisions from University of Chicago on early decision, Wake Forest, Villanova, Tulane. Um, some of the publics, like I know Auburn has started batching. I think they give their first, I don't think it's August 15th. I think September 15th and October 15th they release decisions, and maybe even November 15th for early action. So not only are we getting binding early decision before Thanksgiving, we're getting some public um, decisions from big schools that are not binding. But the next 2 weeks, we will hear from all sorts of schools, early decision and some early action, including some of the most selective schools in the country. So if you are a parent, it is time to buckle your seatbelt. And a parent asked me earlier in the fall, like, gosh, how do you handle, how do we do this? And I said, oh, that would be a really good thing to talk about for the December webinar. So, uh, where to begin? Um, I will give you this example. When my oldest child was about 2.5 years old, two things happened at the very beginning of that summer. One was he disturbed we were somewhere at somebody's house and he was off playing to the side of this yard with some trucks and he disturbed a bee's nest and was stung all over. And I was very calm. And I was with some friends and we called my pediatrician. We explained what happened. They told us what to do, maybe a little Benadryl, watch them carefully, do this thing. We had a whole plan and nothing really happened. And he was okay. And that was the bee sting incident when he disturbed a nest. Within another, I don't know which one happened first, but my husband had put an old storm window out by our garbage can to put out with garbage. And I was in my house and heard glass shatter. And I said, oh my gosh, I knew exactly what had happened. Somehow he had shattered this glass. And I screamed. I mean, I was the picture of panic. I mean, as calm as I was with the bee sting, I don't know why I was calm with the bee sting. And I heard this glass shatter. I was in full panic. I went out there. He is carrying this little 2-year-old, a giant shard of glass covered in blood. I was like beside myself. I was screaming. Turns out he just had nicked himself. We got the glass put away. He just had a little nick, but it was kind of he smeared all over him. It looked a lot worse than it was. He just nicked. Everything was okay. And he talked about that the rest of the summer. And he never mentioned the bee stings, and he never flinched when he saw a bee, and he never, bee stings were never an issue. Bees were not an issue. He wasn't afraid, but he talked about that day with the blood all over him when I was screaming the rest of the summer. So I share that to say, if you are the parent of a senior, what you need to do is really, really put on your own oxygen mask because they are going to be looking for your reaction, much like my child read my reactions at a young age and didn't think much of bees, but boy, a little blood, look out. So, you've got to pull yourself together and realize that if you have, or if you are, your child is probably going to college in the United States of America. It is going to be good. They are going to have good opportunities, even if they don't get that glittering moment of super university wants you. So, how are you going to do this? If you believe it, they'll believe it. And lauding and comforting your child can mean different things, but find something that you can laud them about that is authentic. Don't say, boy, you had such a great GPA if they didn't. Find something that's like, you're such a patient friend, you're such a generous sibling, you're find something that is really authentic, whether they get in or not, that is still true. Um, So for yourself, find an older friend. I don't mean an older friend. I mean a friend who's already done this, a friend whose kids are older than your kids, that they can be like, oh yeah, my kid, like, got turned down everywhere and ended up so and so, and now they're this, and it's all like it all worked out. Find an older friend. Sharing this information with your peer parents of peers of your child, whether your news is good or bad, it's going to be, it's not a great dynamic. So find someone who's been there, done that. Whatever your news is, keep it to yourself for the first 72 hours or so. Obviously, you might tell your grandparents, your aunt and uncle, or, your private circle. But if you have good news, that's great. But you might be out in a climate of people who don't have good news. And it's really hard to hear that. And if you don't have good news and your friend's calling you up going, oh my God, Susie got into Stanford and you have bad news, it's going to be very painful. So just keep to yourself a little bit. It is a very good idea to ask your child how they would like to proceed. What kind of time and space do they want from this? Do they want to find out alone? Do they want to find out with you? Do they want to find out after practice? I heard a kid one time say, the decision was coming out Friday night of the opening of my play, and I made a decision to not check my decision until after the Sunday matinee. Wow, really hard, but really constructive. He's like, I didn't want to find out. I didn't get in right before I had to go on stage. So, ask your child, how do you want to do this? And if the answer is yes, what are we doing? And if the answer is no, what are we doing? You know, some kids might be like, you know what? If I get in, I'm having a giant bowl of macaroni and cheese and celebrating. And that answer might be the same answer if they don't get in. I'm having a giant bowl of macaroni and cheese and staying in my room. So give this the time and space it needs. Um, and collaborate with your child to see how they would like this to go. If the answer is yes, if the answer is no. Um, I had not so much somebody that I worked with professionally, but just somebody I know socially had asked me a couple of questions. Kid applied to early decision somewhere, and I got this text like, they're devastated. And I was like, oh no. But then I looked, they'd been deferred. And I was like, okay, well, you weren't denied, you were deferred. You're still in the game, maybe. It wasn't, but the kid was devastated. This is a very public reckoning for children. These are children, and they put themselves on a tray and serve themselves to a college, and maybe the college says, yes, we like this, or no, no, thank you. So it's very, it's unless they've maybe applied to private high schools, they haven't really done anything like this. Um, so a no really, really stings. Even if they're like applying to a school like a Columbia with such a low admit rate, I think their ED admit rate's like 12%. And when you factor out athletes and senators' sons and stuff like that, I mean, it's really unlikely to get into Columbia. But it still is really going to sting if your child applies to Columbia ED and they don't get in. So this is a big, big passage for them. It, you will probably be surprised. I mean, if you live in a community and you know your child's friends and you have a sense of, gosh, they've always, taken really rigorous courses and they have really good grades and they're a really great kid and they have such a lot to offer, you might be surprised at how this goes down, who gets in and who doesn't get in. Like you might be shocked to see, wow, this kid's just a star and didn't get in. And you see somebody else that got in somewhere, you're like, wow, it's not logical. It doesn't make sense. Don't look for sense. It's colleges do not accept or reject kids. They admit or deny applications. Um, you are at the end of the day, you're going to college. It's somewhere. Um, the thing about this is colleges admit by institutional priorities, and you have no idea what those institutional priorities are at any school. Anybody who tells you they know what they are can't know what they all are. Maybe they know what they are at one school. Maybe they've got an inside track at one school and they know that this school is trying to up their SAT average. But you don't know if the biology program at that school is waning and needs beefing up, if they need boys from the Pacific Northwest, they're looking for more high paid kids, more low paid kids, rural kids, more boys, more girls. You just don't know what their mandate is that year. And they are looking to admit a class and build a class that fills their institutional priorities. It is not personal. So, in terms of this, it's really, if you have a great kid and, they're all great. They all have greatness. They all have wonderful attributes. And even if they're not super strong academic students, they often have wonderful strengths and things that they're bringing. Whether they get in or not, none of that has really changed. So, but you really got to believe that for them to believe it. And if you think about my kid, who I was calm as a, you know, calm as could be with the bee stings, and he never flinched it around a bee. And, I was a bananas with the broken glass, and that's that's what he talked about. So, let's see. This requires a lot of patience. It is really hard. If you were planning a big trip next August, you would be planning it, maybe starting to pencil it out now. Like, are we flying? Are we driving? Are we, where are we staying? And you can't plan anything because you really don't know what's happening. And it's a hard waiting game to know exactly what's going to happen. And the other thing I'll say this is this: if money is a big part of this. And if you're not worried about money, then lean into that because it's a big question for a lot of families, and it actually factors into the final decision of where a student might go. I put the last thing I'll leave you with is Kelly Corrigan has she writes about all sorts of different things, but she has some really nice pieces and things about college admissions. And let me just pull this up. She talks about why college applications are the things of greatness. And um, I posted this on my blog. Um, I don't even know, sometime in the past month or two. Do I have a date on here? No, I don't. But anyway, it's on my blog. It says college applications are still the stuff of greatness. And she said, From the bureaucratic minutiae to the deep introspection, submitting a college application is possibly the biggest achievement of your kid's life to date. And um, she says, tell every high school senior you know this most encouraging truth. Making decisions, weighing fiscal demands, understanding yourself, managing 100 to-dos, overcoming your worst fears, this is the stuff of greatness. And somewhere in here she says, and I love this quote, and it doesn't matter, where you go to college, you are the good news. It's not where you're getting in. You are the good news because you are the person that's going to come to the college and put it all together. So, if you have a senior, good luck. Um, and take a deep breath, and I will see you in January.